Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. In the 25 years that I've been studying natural medicine, I've never had anything become so important as what is happening right now in 25 years. Now, first, as far as Karen mentioned, in regard to the shift, that I went from corporate America and I got wonderfully sick, had a great time getting sick. If you're not enjoying getting sick, that's a shame. Because it's what we're doing that's creating who we are. And I had a ball. For those people that really want to understand that whole concept, go to our website, herbsoflight.com. I'm going to give you a few addresses in this talk. Go to herbsoflight.com. And on the front page, you will see a illuminated icon which says taking responsibility. The most important thing that I could possibly do in my entire life is give education. However, I got guided much further than just the education because of the fact people want to go up one step at a time in regard to evolving and understanding how health truly works. So please go to that particular link, click on it. You'll go to 26 different YouTubes that go for more than 2 hours. It'll have to do with the understanding of health, what it is, how we lose it, how we get it back, the lifestyle, and then how to utilize herbs literally to assist the body do what it has to do to maintain health and get health back. Now that's the most important thing I can say at any particular talk I do in the world in regard to taking responsibility, the education, and what we do, the lifestyle we have. I got rid of all of those diseases. Rheumatoid, any folks here that play golf at all? Play golf? Okay. My hands deformed so badly, I couldn't hold the golf club. That's deformation. Johns Hopkins Mayo Clinic said I could never get my health back. It was impossible. What I decided to do is I decided not to study what they studied because of the fact it didn't work. And I'm not putting anybody down. I just said, let's go and find out how this really, truly works in regard to health. And that's when I started studying those folks that Karen mentioned and many, many more. All of my diseases came out of my body. When you fast for 26 days and when you don't put any dead food in your body for more than 2 years and when you allow the mind to rest and make sure the body moves and you drink enough water and you live relative to natural law. In other words, I also studied macrobiotic, wonderful. I then went to Oriental, TCM, great stuff. And then I went to Ayurveda, fantastic. Lad and I became quite close. I had to go further than that, and I was allowed to understand natural law. Literally allowed to understand natural law. That's when I did those things that I just discussed. We had colonic irrigations that people say, oh no, the water's not supposed to go in that direction. And we did the fasting, water fasting for 26 days, didn't put one piece of cooked food in my body for more than 2 years, and all of the other things relative to all animals and what they do in their lifestyle. That shifted me dramatically to make sure I wanted to be part of the solution. Very, very important. The idea of wanting to be part of the solution, I asked for guidance, and I got directed to become an herbalist, an herbologist. By the way, let me also say that I was vice president of American Natural Hygiene. Anyone remember the book Fit for Life? Fit for Life, Harvey and Maryland. And the idea of Harvey and Maryland, very, very good. And I would lecture on health all the time. And I would hopefully give enough passion so that people could want to move their body and produce their own garden and get major minerals, all of the major salts of the earth into that garden. The problem was, when I got into the idea of fasting, people wouldn't fast. Because the first time I fasted, the second day I quit. Anyone understand what I'm saying? Because you allow much more energy, there's much more ATP built in the cell. There's much more energy to throw junk out. Well, if I quit the second day, can you imagine what most people do when they start doing this? So anyway, then I was allowed to go much further. Ultimately, Herbs of Light was put together. I wanted to make sure that if people are not going to produce their own fabulous food, hopefully they would understand what type of food to eat. So we wanted to make sure that we could produce medicine which was the literal food that Hippocrates talked about. Wow. Let your food be your medicine, let your medicine be your food. I did that in regard to getting rid of deformations in my body and the osteoporosis and many other things. However, after I got all of those diseases taken care of, and I got my health back also, which are two different things, we were allowed to have this Herbs of Light company be a vehicle to help an awful lot of folks with education and make sure that we had medicine from the botanical in the earth, that when you pull it out of mom, it starts losing its life force. Now stick with me for just a second. So the life force is starting to come out of the botanical. Nobody's usually talking about this because everyone's talking about chemistry and constituents and standardization and all of this stuff. When you start to understand that all of that particular medicine has to be true food, whole food, in balance. And you start understanding when you take the plant out of the ground and it starts losing its life force, it's like taking your arm off of the body. It's losing the life force too. Where did it get the life force? From inside the body. Where did the herb get the life force? Inside of mom, its body. So we put the company together and we allowed ourselves to go on a tremendous R&D, tremendous research on how to get the energy back in. I'm not going to get into that tonight. If you want to understand that, go to our website or give me a call and I will share with you forever, because this is very, very important information. I'm not going to get into Ormus, or I'm not going to get into all sorts of things that are way out there, because I want to make sure that we help folks do something now. After we were able to get the energy into the medicine, into the liquid herbal extracts, anyone here of Edgar Cayce's? Please? Cool. That's when the Heritage was looking for a laboratory to do the Edgar Cayce products. Well, I don't know how many people were in ARE, or one of the Cayce areas, but a magnificent man. They heard what we were doing, that the Heritage did. They were looking at the finest herb companies in the world. Gaia, Herb Farm, Eclectic, Herbs, etc. Great companies. When they started hearing about an individual that was putting the energy back in, they took notice and asked us if we could possibly send the products to them. They looked at it energetically and chemically. And the finest phone call I ever received in my life is when the Heritage called and said, would Herbs of Light be the laboratory to do the Edgar Cayce products? I want you to know that was a goosebump. Everyone understand what goosebumps are? That made me understand that let's go ahead and do something with this company. Now, let me also share this. About 8 to 10 years later, I get on some genetic committees, I was asked. And the first thing we find out, if you might remember when they found out that most all of the corn was genetically altered? You go, oh my gosh. Well, this was horrible. This was horrible. Because all of us that go to Southwood School of Botanical Medicine, John Christopher, all the major people in the world that get us to understand what true medicine is so we can put it in our body, give us a great, great suggestion to use ethyl alcohol. What is ethyl alcohol made from? Corn. I got antennas coming out of my brain when I'm hearing this. I'm saying, my God. Understanding energy, by the way, and let me also share this. In all of my studies, all the way from Hippocrates, Jesus, Buddha, many people, most all of the study was about energy. Most all of the study was about energy. Now in quantum, we know that energy creates chemistry. We got to have both of that stuff, folks, for true literal medicine, for true life. Long story made short again, we went to biodynamic grape. We then went to GMO-free cane sugar, alcohol. All of it is sugar, by the way, all of it. I'm very, very happy because of the fact now we have a true whole food with the chemistry and the energy is in balance. So what my mission was in this lifetime, and by the way, I already did the success stuff. You know success means making income? The idea, that was corporate America. Now, if we really want to do a job, let's really get prosperity. Let's really get great stuff, which is allowing ourselves to help people. The idea, if we could actually put a whole food, now this industry is getting a little bit carried away. We got whole food. If you can put real whole food into a container and get it to the people and have them utilize that because they're not going to take their exercise and move their bodies to make their own gardens, to make the perfect food, now we've done a job. I promised we would not market what we do. It had to go from grassroots. That's because I came from corporate America. Anybody understand that marketing is always better than any service or product it's talking about? And it's coming out now all over the world, economically, politically, and all of these sort of things. We just want to make sure that we have enough compassion, we have enough health, we have enough love to share this with people so they can feel it too, so they can somehow make a change also. So, end result, we have about 400 products. I still say those 400 products are worth about 15 to 20% of what the individual has to do. And I'm the fellow that owns the whole lab. In other words, if people don't change their lifestyle, they're not getting the job done. Because it's the lifestyle that's creating the dis-ease. Okay. We get the company going. We go through about 15 years, 20 years. And I start hearing about Lyme disease. Anybody here for Lyme disease, by the way? Okay. Folks, let me share with you, bless you. Lyme disease is the pandemic, not the avian, not the swine. Lyme disease is the pandemic. Lyme disease is the fastest increasing disease on the planet. Lyme disease is given to babies that come through the uterus, through mother's milk. It is the largest sexually transmitted disease in the world. It's the same spirochete that took the syphilis in. And I humorously joke and say, I got mine from a tick, darn it. The idea here is this is extremely insidious because it starts very small and it embellishes. And depending upon how the person is doing, they'll instantly get some symptom if the body's not really well. But sometimes it really multiplies and proliferates before any symptom is understood, which makes it so the individual doesn't think they have to change their lifestyle or consider getting more of their health back. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Am I getting through on this? This is very, very important stuff. So, I was asked by some clinics, Dean, please help us. Our waiting rooms are filling up with Lyme disease. These are very unusual doctors in South Carolina. Great service. They understood what it was. I said, I will help. I hired a national sales manager. 2 weeks later, he said, Dean, I've got to go see my doctors again because of the fact the symptoms of Lyme has come back, of which a year ago, the doctors said you are cured of all of the Lyme, including the other co-infections. Well, the only thing they were doing is giving this IV of antibiotic, which would make these bugs, by the way, these are the smartest, most intelligent, wisest, parts of nature as far as a pathogen we have on the planet. They go in through this corkscrew, which is the spirochete. If you do not get that particular Lyme within 4 to 8 to 12 weeks, they will mature into the nature, because it is nature. It's literally nature. And when nature has to defend itself, it has now grown up. It has now become dramatically wise to understand how to do this. In that short period before that time, doxycycline can take care of it, by the way, or golden seal, or resistant microbe. But the idea is once it starts to become dramatically wise, the first thing that happens is it starts to change its appearance. It starts to mutate. It starts pulling aminos onto its body. So now all of the pharmaceuticals are out the window because of the fact pharmaceuticals are designed for one particular molecular structure. And when it's not there anymore, they can't get anything. And by the way, that is now known for both that bacteria and virus. And we'll go into a little bit of information about MRSA tonight, I hope. So anyway, we will have a situation now where these little guys are changing their clothes, they're changing their appearance, they're mutating, and then they produce a film, a juice. It's called a cyst, and they stay in the cyst where that cyst will help them defend any intruders dramatically. And then the actual reason I received it myself, and I truly believe I received it so I can help people, by the way. Anyone understand what I'm saying? In other words, we all have a task. We all have a task. And so my situation was the only thing that I didn't take care of in my physiology was metals. I still had mercury. And folks, if you have mercury, or your customers or your patients, and they get bitten by any vector insect is anything that bites. All vector insects have Lyme now, Borrelia. Wow. Now, we don't know the percentage, but mosquitoes have it, spiders have it, deer ticks have it, all ticks have it. Now, you're not looking at any magazines out there and reading this. This you have to study. You have to dig for. Literally, it's the truth. In other words, I've got a couple doctors that say, no, you cannot get it sexually. Right on the internet, you can see Borrelia right in the sperm. Wow. So the idea is, please understand more about this particular devastating disease. One of our major ladies that I've never met because I've been too busy doing what we do, 7 months ago or so, has died, that headed up one of the major Lyme associations. In other folks, people just aren't getting it. So anyway, another huge story. If you want to see that one, look at Lyme disease and Dean's story on the first page of herbsoflight.com. I thank God that I got Lyme disease, because 2 medicines came out of Lyme's disease that are just the most important thing that I've come about. First, we made deer tick defense, and by the way, I believe you have the protocol in your laps on this. So later on, please go over it. This is a dramatic passion in my life. It will produce prosperity for anybody that goes and has enough discipline, courage, willpower to do the job that it takes to get this particular pathogen out of your body, literally. And so here I am sharing this information. Now we put together the deer tick defense. That affects the structure of the vortexing spirochete taking in the bacteria. Then we got to a call from a clinic that said, Dean, the deer tick works wonderfully, but we have a huge problem because of the fact that these bacteria are mutating. They're changing their appearance. And so we did a lot of research and study, and we put together what is called resistant microbes. Some people say it sounds like a rock band, resistant microbes. This was made in combination with grapefruit seed, thuja, olive leaf, golden seal, all of the major I don't like the word antibiotic, bacterial herbs that we have on the planet. We always want to know if things work. We put it together. It took us a little while to do the research. We sent it to the clinic. Amazing how coincidence works. I hope everyone understands what coincidence is. Within 1 or 2 weeks that we got it to the clinic, the head of the clinic, the doctor, was very close to the family in Iraq, believe it or not. And the family calls this doctor and said, Charlie, we have a real problem here. The government just took our father, put him into quarantine because he has some bugs and their antibiotics wouldn't work. Do you have anything that will help? He said, I might. He sent out the resistant microbes. A few weeks later, they called him back, said, we love you, God bless you, Dad's out of quarantine. We have this on our website as far as testimonial. Now, this is very important because we have a lot of philosophical entertainment going on. Everyone's discussing all sorts of stuff. We have to make sure things work. We have to make sure we can walk it. So when I found that out, I was a very happy guy. They called me and they said, Dean, this is what happened. Well, a few weeks later, you'll know the timing on this now. I got a phone call and they said, Dean Martens, you've always been very much in front of your time. How did you know about MRSA? And I said, what's MRSA? He said, what do you mean, what's MRSA? You have a whole document here written about it. What I had done is I had this whole page put together about methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which the first letters are MRSA. Well, this was the day that they came out in the media, in television and radio, and said, we now have more deaths from what we call MRSA than all of the HIV in 2007. So I'm listening to this, and I'm saying, well, I'm very happy we were able to accomplish this. Because, by the way, you can get that particular paper right on the front of our website also. We give a whole chronology of how nature, in other words, we're all nature, how bugs, which are part of nature, do the things that really make it so that we have a wonderful classroom to find out what should we be doing in our life that makes it so that we keep our health or we get our health back, literally. So we have the resistant microbes that was put together from this. I was a very happy fellow. I utilized that. Utilized the Health Assist, mail. This will be all in the protocol you read about. Because you have to help the body cleanse, rebuild its energies, and rebuild its immune. The military's losing the war. We got to make sure that we assist that particular military. It's the only military I love because it's driven from wisdom. All the other militaries are driven from intelligence, and boy, they're not doing really well. But the idea of making sure that we have something that helps the body do what it does, we did that, that's great. We got the deer tick defense for the spirochete. We got the resistant microbes to take care of the changing bacteria. And then I got into the Rife machine. Anybody know about Rife? R-I-F. Oh, we got weird people here, cool. So we got the Rife machine. By the way, read that and you'll know that I suggest the one that's the most expensive, and read why. It's the Beam Ray, because then you can use it 3 hours a day when you're going to bed and when you're waking up. So we're utilizing that. Then we went to mushrooms, maitake, reishi, and shiitake, and I was getting the job done. Now, please know that I went back to living an almost pure life. Almost pure life. In other words, I got the sprouts out again like crazy. I mean, from 70 to 80% raw, I went to 80 to 90% raw. And it's tough because of the fact when you travel, it's tough having everything raw. you have to make sure that the lifestyle is assisting what this particular vehicle and home is. For those people who love your car and love your house, let me share this. This is the most important vehicle and house you've ever had in your life. And think of the money we spend on those cars and houses and what we do to this. It's wild. So, I got approximately 90% or so done, but I couldn't get the rest. I could not get the rest. I'd study like crazy. Many, many other people couldn't get the rest either. In other words, if you start studying Lyme disease, you'll see an awful lot of people who get most of their symptoms taken care of, but they can't get the stuff done. That led me to salt. I won't give you that whole story. Led me to salt. I took a 1,000 milligram tablet, USP, and I could feel a difference within the first 24 hours. I then looked for good salt. I couldn't find any good salt. What I found was salt that I could put in the water, whether it be Celtic salt, Celtic salt, or Himalayan crystal salt. You put it in the water and you drink it down. I did that. I said, wow, after about the second or third day, it's like drinking ocean water. If you're putting the amount in that we're starting to truly understand. So I'm looking around and I'm saying, my gosh, where is a product of some great salt? And there wasn't. Now that is amazing. I was studying salt, got into all of that. I won't go into that here as far as all of those things that we found out. I will a little bit later in regard to most of it. But the idea of it is it has so much common sense, it's so intuitive, it's tremendously wise with its understanding. This body has to be 1% filled with mineral salts. I'm not talking about the sodium chloride that the bond is not there and it's been heated for 1,200 degrees. I'm talking about all of the mineral salts that are in the ocean, which is Mother Nature's womb. That's Mom's womb. That started all the single cell and larger cells. In other words, that was the procreative environment of the planet. So we said, okay, gosh, Herbs of Light is going to encapsulate salt. At that time, I looked at all of the different salts. Black volcanic salt from Hawaii, fulvic and humic acids and all of that. The Celtic salts. The day that I found that sea salt, Celtic salt, is mostly a real problem because it is polluted like crazy from 60 to 70 years of poisons going into our oceans from all of the industrialized nations, makes you very sad. Folks, that's our salt. Now, you only feel that when you start to understand what the salt is in our life. Sea salt wouldn't work in regard to what I'm looking at because of the fact that almost 90% of all the packagers heat the sea salt. It used to be very dark gray before, now it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And I'm finding out much more about salt than I knew before because salt has all of the electrolytic. In other words, all of these mineral salts have the energy that literally allow the transmission and reception of neurological communication of the body to work. Now, what I just said is huge. Huge. That's one of the things which is huge. In other words, everyone's talking about electrolytes, but are any of them working? Any of them working? That's why I say we got a lot of philosophical entertainment out there. So, end result, we went into the Himalayan mountains, found out that when the plates came together in the earth 250 million years ago, and it pushed up the land, making the Himalayan mountains, and the sea receded, and the salt stayed on the land, and then the volcanic activity went on top of the salts, and then the other earth for millions and hundreds of millions of years. That tectonic pressure that pushed against the salt, just like it pushes against coal to create diamonds. Women know that, by the way. But by the way, congratulations for all the guys being here. That's great. That's great. That's nurturing. That's nurturing. Thank you, women, for bringing them. So now, if we start to understand that sea salt is fabulous, fabulous. Why? Because sea salts are the 84 different mineral salts. It's not sodium chloride. We've got to get that out of our trained education. We're talking about major energetics of the planet. And then if you put it up in the Himalayan mountains and you put all the tectonic pressure on it, it is going to do something that Mother Nature did fantastically. And it put through that tectonic pressure a quartz crystalline body around the molecule of that salt. I really hope you heard what I just said. Because everyone's talking about Himalayan crystal salt, but what in the world is it? In other words, we start out with great salt that's an electrolyte, electrolytic capability, all of the different minerals. And when you have that going into the body, that in itself is enough. However, people have gotten really sick. People have gotten really toxic. In other words, the world is dramatically toxic now. So the idea is if we now can go and embellish and make better the sea salt, which is the major salt, and put more particular energy into that particular substance, that when we put it into our body, we will make it so that the nerve tissue of the cells communicate better. Okay, I hope you got that. Now, within a year and a half, and by the way, most people have been trying to get rid of Lyme's disease forever, as soon as they know it. Let me also say this, most all of the diseases that are neurological, fibromyalgias, arthritic, all of the inflamed skeletal stuff, most all of the diseases we meaning some major doctors and scientists, now know that most of fibromyalgia is Lyme. Most arthritis is Lyme. Most neurological disease is now Lyme and heavy metal. Please understand that. We go back to, I had mercury in my body. That allowed the Lyme to go in and hide behind the heavy metal as a shield. Because I was clean and my immune system was topped off. How in the world did I get that? Because of the fact that God really liked me. Says, oh, we'll do this. And it's amazing that I never took care of all of the mercury. That's amazing to me. But it wasn't afterwards. So, in regard to Lyme disease, please also know that I found out about MMS. Anybody know about MMS? Please understand it is the most powerful medicine on our planet. Please understand you have to get yourself educated. It's right on the internet. We will not sell it. Some stores sell it, but they put it behind, they don't put it out. They put it behind their door because people are starting to find out about this. The buildings in Washington that had the anthrax, that is what they used to clean all the buildings, this particular substance. That's all I really want to say about that. Look into MMS, make sure that you get educated, make sure you understand how it works because you want to know how to dose it, dosage. Because people will throw up and they'll have to buy Depends. In other words, when people take it in, the body will utilize this to kill all of the pathogens and that particular body will throw that stuff out like you've never seen in your entire life. So the idea of it is you do have to get educated in how to use it. Between that MMS and the salt, and by the way, when the MMS is done with its work, do you know what it turns into? Salt. Wow. I had very wise people call me up and say, Dean, that's amazing that you're bringing salt to the world. And they said, by the way, do you know what a problem that could be for you? I said, yeah. Because we're told we shouldn't drink that much water, or we shouldn't take any salt. I'll get into that in a second. But the idea, they said, please understand that this particular 2 atoms of oxygen and 1 atom of chloride, which is the MMS that you put with some citric acid, when it's done with its work of oxidizing all of the pathogens, or what else it does, it turns into salt. So I eventually decided to look into it because I'm in the whole food. There's certain things, if you understand that if it is synergistic with the body and doesn't hurt the body, you can drink too much water and hurt the body. Drink 5 gallons. But the idea is, I mention this because I want to make sure that we get the whole gamut. So, in a year and a half, I no longer had Borrelia. I no longer had Babesia. Excuse me. Here's the problem now. Oh, I don't have the disease anymore. Well, how do you know? Well, because of the fact that most people go out and get these tests. And they'll take a test, a blood test. Western blot is 30 to 50% accurate. It's a shame. But what will happen is they'll be taking medicine, whether it be pharmaceutical or even natural. And they won't stop taking it, and they take the test, and of course they get a negative reading. Why? Because the bugs are hiding. I hope you're understanding that part. What you want to do, and this is Dean Martin saying this because I'm saying, fast, eat live food. I want you to make it so you eat junk. When you're going to get that test to find out if you no longer have the bugs, because you have to make that environment inside of us, and I wish doctors got this down. You've got to make it so the environment inside of the body is very hospitable to draw the bugs out back into the blood. And when you do that, make sure that you are doing it 3 different times, at least a month between each time for the blood. In your paperwork, you will have something called flow cytometry, which is a test by the Central Florida Research. It's the only laboratory I suggest in regard to Lyme disease. And many other amazing wise people say the same thing. Get that as far as the blood test, and then after you do that 3 times, while your body has become fermented and putrid. In other words, do the whipped creams. Do the stuff you're not supposed to do. I have to say, I had a hard time. I really had a hard time, because when you're not used to it, it's tough. Eat cooked food. Eat cooked animal products. Oh my God. Then, after 3 blood tests, I want to make sure that you understand that you should get a quantum biofeedback energetic test, which is energetic. Now, if you come through all of those 4 tests and you no longer have the bugs showing up, call me and I will congratulate you like crazy, and we'll put you up on the website, because this is going to be very large. So, in regard to the salt, we're going to shift right now into total salt. Huge problem because of the fact, gosh, if you take salt in, what's going to happen to you? What have we been trained to believe? Right. You've got real problems here. Now, let me also say this. If you really look into it, if you really investigate high blood pressure, it's DNA, it's the amount of water in the body, it's toxicity, and there's no salts. There's no mineral salts to allow the interstitial fluids to take care of the pathogens. So it's usually with people with the DNA, though, usually. They get the hypertension. I started studying, and my golly, anybody hear of Dr. Mercola? I respect this fellow very, very much. I hope you look into his website in regard to the swine vaccination classroom we're going through. when he finally started to understand that if you have enough water and salt, Himalayan crystal salt, right on his website. And he does R&D. I mean, he does tremendous research and development. He said, please use the Himalayan crystal salt. It will assist in regulating blood pressure, not just high, but also low. Now, if you're an athlete, you might have low blood pressure, which is absolutely okay. I did. But the idea is we have to have the salts there to make it so that the body is working, goes back into balance. Anybody here a Dr. Oz? The first two displays, salt displays, which you'll see, in fact, you've got in your lap, but you'll see downstairs tomorrow. The first two that we put in the world, it was in Kentucky. And one of the gals said, "Oh, Dean, I don't know about this salt. My God, people don't want to have salt. They're going to get sick." Anyway, she brought it in, and 2 days after they brought it in, would you believe that Dr. Oz said on his TV show, please have Himalayan crystal salt for heartburn and reflux. And it helps many, many different problems. Wow. Folks, this is now getting birthing. It's now coming. It's kind of like Einstein. The same year that Einstein had the theory of relativity, 3 other people had it. It was time. It was time. Now let's go a step further. People know Dr. Batman Gailey's Your Body's Many Cries for Water? He was on my radio show many, many years ago. And on the radio show, he mentioned something I really wasn't ready for, but I'll never forget it. He said, Dean, water is so important for the body, and the salts that we have on the planet have to be in that water. And if we don't have those salts in the water, we have a huge problem in regard to oxygen. In fact, he said, the mineral salts on this planet are more important than oxygen. Wow. And that's right on a CD that we have. Anybody would like to have that CD, you call our office. What's he saying? He's saying this: if you don't have those salts that have that particular energy that goes into the water, and the water becomes part of the hemoglobin, it goes into the tubes. If you don't have the salts there, those salts are the things that carry the oxygen through the sodium-potassium pump of the cell. Now, would you believe that, my God, if we don't have the salts there, people might become deficient energetically? Why? Because the oxygen can't get through to have the mitochondria create ATP. What I just said is to make energy in the cell. To give you an idea on this, I get a little passionate about this because of the fact this is so important. It's so important. The first 2 bottles of salt that were sold in the world in a capsule was in Florida. 2 bottles went onto this counter of this fellow who I'm very close with. He said, well, you better tell me how to use this. I said, I will. Came out of a box, went on this counter the same day. Coincidence? A lady in her 70s walks into the store and said, we really need a tremendous amount of help. We just came from the cardiologist, my husband and I, and he said, your husband's in trouble. He doesn't have any salts in his body. His energy is lacking dramatically so much that he could be in real trouble. Please go. Now, this is a cardiologist that I have not met yet, but we're getting together with. And you'll understand what I'm going to say. This cardiologist said to these people, please go to a health food store and have them help you with salts that your husband should have. I hope you understand what I just said. This is a cardiologist. They came in to this health food store, this lady did, and she said, we really need some help. He looks at her, the bottle, he says, here. Coincidence? Try it. Try it. Now, this has helped us greatly in understanding what can be done. 10 days later, this lady comes back into his store, goes through the door, looks at Phil and said, I absolutely love you. Absolutely love you. So we just came from the cardiologist. He said, I don't know what you're doing, but my God, keep doing it. Because your husband's salt levels and energetic levels are up to the lower part of normal within 10 days. Now, this is very unusual. I'm not going to say this happens all the time, because this fellow was dramatically deficient. Anyway, she said, that's not why I love you. I love you because of the fact my husband has been a couch potato for more than 10 years. He hasn't wanted to do anything. And 2 days ago, he said, hon, let's take a trip. We just got back from the trip this morning before going over to the cardiologist. And she started crying. Phil said, sobbing. And she said, you got my husband's life back for me. He starts tearing. In fact, I got to watch it when I say that, because I'll get carried away. And they call me. And I'm listening to this, and I'm saying, oh my God, isn't that wonderful? The thing I'm saying is everything happens for a reason. In other words, here I was receiving information that this could really help, really help. Now, this is after I found out, my God, it could really help to get rid of a disease that people are not getting rid of. Next idea. What did the Indians use to preserve their meat from proliferating bacteria? Salt. Now, that's when great salt was on the earth, by the way. Great salt. What does an emergency room patient have to have once that patient goes into that emergency room? An IV of saline solution, water and salt. Why? Because guaranteed the person is dehydrated. 98% of the human race is dehydrated. In other words, this is made of water, and we're not putting the water in. We're not making this thing correct. Boy, could I go on that. But the idea is we're rehydrating the body now, and also there are some salts in that solution which will act as an antibiotic, and it will also act as the major kickstart of chemical and energetic mechanisms of the body to make it start working. Do you all understand what I just said? In other words, this thing stops working. Of what? Well, the mitochondria, the sodium, potassium, all of the things that happen in the body, thousands, many millions. But the idea is now they're using $300 to $500 a bag. They give them 5 or 10 bags. A fellow revives, gal revives. Never heard about water and salt before they went into the emergency room. Never heard about water and salt when they left the emergency room. Please understand that water and salt is so important. It is why I say it's the most important thing that I have ever studied in my whole entire life, in regard to the medicine that is needed within this body, literally. Last thing I want to say on that, as far as people. Dr. Oprah, not Oprah, Dr. Oprah, the president, Dr. Oprah, and Oprah, which I get a kick out of because I'm supposed to see it. I've never seen Oz, Dr. Oz. I've heard about him. But I guess Oprah did a great job for Dr. Oz. But Dr. Oprah was president of the American Heart Institute. And she decided she was going to look at all of the tests relative to hypertensive people. And she looked at the tests they had in New York, where they were very hypertensive, and the people on no and low salt, high blood pressure people on low and no salt, versus the group that were using table salt. Now, first let me say this. Table salt is a real poison. Real poison. In other words, they'll take salt, make it into an industrialized salt, and they will heat it with 12 to 1500 degrees of heat. It kills all of the bond between the sodium and the chloride, because that's really all they're doing is sodium chloride. And then what do? They put poison of fluoride, chemicalized iodine, and a lot of other junk into this particular product. This is a total foreign substance of the human body, of any body. It's also one of the most poisonous things that goes into the body. Well, what does the heart start to do? It starts to say, hey, I better start pumping. Why? Because I got a whole bunch of poison in me. Now, if it doesn't have the DNA or some of the other things, it's not going to keep pumping, making it hypertension. But the idea of it is this is really bad stuff. Now, after saying that, please remember this. The difference between the hypertensive people on no salt, low salt, versus the people on the poison salt. They found, literally in a peer-reviewed test, that there was 400% more heart attacks with the people on the low salt. 400% more heart attacks than the people on the toxic, industrialized table salt. Now that doesn't make sense, right? This doctor, this president of the American Heart Institute then says, oh my God, body needs salt. But why in the world didn't the government say, we got to give the body good salt instead of all of that junk? Please start to understand that Mother Earth needs all those mineral salts. I don't know if you're into biodynamics. We have 30 acres of organic property. We turned it into a biodynamic organism north of Gainesville. We have to make sure we have all of the salts in that particular land, and we're putting much more in all the time. We have to get those mineral salts into our body. Someone mentioned to me, well, Dean, relative to what you're saying, that means that everybody should be buying salt from your company. Because how else are they going to get the salt? The salts, the mineral salts. And I've always been an individual whose priority of our company, the number one priority of our company is to make sure that we lose customers. That's the number one priority of our company. Jerry knows, he's seen me talk forever. The idea is you got to give the education if people are ready. And if they're not ready, it'll be a seed or a catalyst for when they're ready later. But the idea now, it's very important to understand that we've got to have the salt in the body. So, now by the way, as we go for the next few minutes, any questions that are very important, make sure you raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
What about pets? Can you give them the salt?
I give it to my Labrador, who is now getting rid of that, and resistant microbe is now getting rid of heartworm. In other words, all animals have to have salt. The deer licks. All animals look for salt. Problem is the land doesn't have the salt anymore. Other problem is now the oceans don't have salt that's clean. I am going to have, by the way, a meeting with an individual that I respect greatly in regard to Celtic salt because of the fact they're saying they have it clean, it's not polluted, and it hasn't been heated. I'll find out about that. And if that's correct, we will be doing Celtic salt also. But it's a different salt because of the fact of the crystalline idea.
Can you just put a dab on their food or something?
Well, what we did is we produced the capsules, 1,000 milligrams of salt. And you mean for the animals? Right. Yeah. What I do is I take the capsule actually apart, and now I'm giving 2,000 milligrams in my Labrador's food every night. Very important, very important. And also a capsule of the resistant microbe that goes in there. And the salt will cover up the resistant microbe. The grapefruit seed is a bit bitter. So, end result of what I want to share with you and I want to hopefully have you feel is the idea of, please consider the idea of making sure you're getting mineral salts in the body. Mineral salts in the body. In other words, this has to be 1% salt solution, just like the ocean is. Just like the ocean is. And if it's not, we do not have all of the magic that we are made of. Now, I'm not going to get into that much, but I want to make sure that we go as high as we possibly can. In other words, folks, we're magic. We just don't have the stuff. The body is void of the major materials that make it who we are. Ever hear of that great guy that's a buddy of mine? Said, you too can do this and even more. It wasn't just chewing bubble gum. It's the truth. It's the truth. Now what's happening in our world is things are going to shift around a bit. We're beginning to get more information. And things are going to start changing quite substantially. The idea of utilizing the capsules for nature's antibiotic, fantastic. I normally recommend, and by the way, the gentleman who took the salt that made it so that his energies came back, he used 2 capsules with every meal. He was 75 years old. You do it 6 days a week on everything, all medicine, 6 days a week. The other, yes sir, yes ma'am.
Overdose on it?
All right, good situation. Can you overdose on it? I started putting 6 capsules down, 10 capsules down in a day. 4th or 5th or 6th day, I woke up with a sacroiliac inflammation. I thought it was. It wasn't. It was my kidneys were totally inflamed because of the fact this salt kills the bugs. It's not maybe, should, might. It's going to kill the bugs. And that die-off, which is dramatically acidic and poisonous, if it doesn't have enough water flow to make us pee like crazy, I'm getting to love the word pee. Literally. We've got to pee. And people aren't peeing. You have to take enough water in and get enough water out, have a sewerage system to get all of that die-off out. I stopped taking the salt for 2 days. I drank a whole bunch and I peed a lot. All the inflammation went away. So please know that. The only problem that I know of in regard to Himalayan crystal salt or any great salt is it will kill the pathogen. And that pathogen die-off has to get out of the kidney and the bladder. That is the one major problem. Now, next idea is we've got the capsules for what? Energy. We've got the capsules for the normal antibiotic. The normal antibiotic that's supposed to be in our interstitial fluids as those pathogens are going in and out of whatever cell they are in. It says, oh, I can't handle this stuff, these mineral salts, because they're going to take care of the pathogen. 1892, New York Times, we just drew it out before they took it off of the internet, of a physician. If you want this, we're going to have this on our website, we just don't have it right now. A physician that mentioned when they utilized salt for cholera, typhoid, and yellow fever, it always went away. Folks, we're talking about major stuff. And we're going to get that back out into the public. Somehow it got taken off of the internet. But the idea is as far as energy, folks, people are energetically deficient. Energetically deficient. I mean, when I got to be 40 years old, well, I was 5 years old again because I had all my energy back. When you finally do all that work, it's amazing how your life changes. Bacteria, energy, the last thing, which is the last thing I want to share with you, is so important it is ridiculous. It's the most important thing that I can possibly share with you. I used to teach people, as I said before, to please fast. Please do a water fast. A fast is total rest, not just not eating. Total rest. Allows all of the energy of the body to build up. Body takes the energy to throw all the junk out. Very simple. And we started feeling lousy. People call me up, oh, I feel lousy. I loved it. I said, that's great. The problem is people wouldn't do it. And I'm teaching all this for years and years. In the book, Water and Salt, the Essence of Life, which you have in your hands and you'll also see tomorrow, by Ferrer, the biophysicist in Germany, and also Handel. I forget the page number, but it says right in there what I had felt all my life. Because they're saying in many different cultures, you're sick, go into the ocean. Anyone hear that? Go into the ocean. Why? Because of the salt. Just don't drink that because of the bromide. Just understand that. So here, the number one thing that the human being has to do is to cleanse stuff out. We put junk in more than we can throw it out. We fill up, the body putrefies, it ferments, and now the bugs go in. Folks, please understand, we now understand that if you take 2.4 pounds of salt, Himalayan crystal salt, and by the way, many different Himalayan crystal salts, it has to make sure that it has enough tectonic pressure, it has to be under earth to make that particular crystal form. And you have to make sure it has not been heated. There's quite a few of the Himalayan crystal salts that have been heated. So those two things are very, very important. Now you put 2.4 pounds, we have this in a cotton linen organic bag. It's beautiful with the black rope and all sorts of stuff. You put that salt into a normal sized bathtub and you put it at basically your body temperature, 97, 98, 99. And you stay in there from 30 to 45 minutes and you luxuriate in that. I mean, everyone like hot baths. It's better than fasting. It literally, in 30 to 45 minutes, takes out as much toxicity as a 3-day water fast. And I hope you just heard what I said. And you do it in comfort. You do it in a beautiful environment. And that is the most important thing that has ever happened to my life in regard to this whole understanding of all these mineral salts. Are they just supposed to be in our body? No, they're supposed to be in all of the bodies, the Earth's body, Mom's body. Please consider doing this. Please consider doing this. In other words, if there's any of those folks in the audience that really want to make it so that loyalty, helping the customer, helping the patient, we now have a couple doctors doing this. Wow. Please understand you should consider doing it for yourself. Your skin will become moister because of the fact you want to keep the salt on a little bit longer after you get out. And what does salt do? It brings water to it. So the dermis and the epidermis have more moisture. And it's going to feel much softer for a bit of time. You do it for quite some time and you get those salts in the body. My gosh, the moisture is going to be wonderful. Yes, ma'am. How often? Thank you. In a dire emergency, we're dying in 2 weeks. Every day. Normally, for the person that wants to truly detox, every week, once a week. On a new moon is when most of the extraction will come out. I'm not going to get into that. But it's how the earth inhales and exhales. New moon, there's more extraction. Full moon, more assimilation. So, in other words, if someone wants to do it once a year, it's still, hey, they did it once. That's great. But the idea of detoxing once a week. Okay. Any questions, any assistance I can provide, do not hesitate in calling me. I hope you feel that I truly believe this is important. I am not doing this to sell a product, literally. In other words, you can go in the ocean more, hopefully. And the only other thing that you can please consider is start using your body, get the exercise, make it move, create a garden, and then what should you do? Go to the ocean, get the seaweed, put the seaweed in as mulch. All of those salts are in the seaweed. Now, Mother Earth will take care of the pollution. But the idea of those plants now will assimilate those salts and it'll become part of the tissue of the food we eat. That's what we're supposed to be eating anyway. Folks, the organic food that we're eating doesn't have the salts. So I'm saying, what should I say when people say, well, gosh, for us to get the salts, what do we do except buy from you? And I'm saying, wow, this is a real problem. Now, those are for people that have really want to have an amazing life. I mean, it just depends how high up people want to go. But I will say this, remember the emergency room. That's about as low as you can go. And what do? They give you saline solution. Okay, thank you very much for your time, very much.